So, back live streaming again. It's been a while. I've been streaming Battlefront. How's it going, everyone? I'm with my friend, Mr. ID Fire Department. Say hello to everybody.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Battlefront 2. And pretty much, since everyone's really excited about this game, I would say I'm actually a little bit excited too. Especially the fact that even though, as much as I really enjoy the first one, there's really not too much for the first one, unfortunately. There's no story mode, and it's pretty much only based online, and people had a lot of complaint about how the fact that there's lack of content for Star Wars Battlefront. And like I said, as much as I really enjoy it, and I know you enjoy it as much, but we can all agree that it was a disappointment. The first one was. But since now we're heading into Star Wars Battlefront 2, and we already saw the preview, we saw the trailers, we saw possibly a lot of speculation. What are you hoping for Star Wars Battlefront 2? I want to hear your thoughts, ID.
My biggest thought is just the all-out weapons and vehicles. Dice and all them. They're mostly named for Battlefield. I heard that that most of the back in Battlefront they were mostly pickups. Are they gonna be pickups anymore, or are they gonna be a spawn-in type thing? And that's just a big part. Play a big part in the whole gameplay because as playing Battlefield, you don't really. You think of Star Wars, you think of like space battles and stormtroopers, versus just lightsabers, just that's all you think about. You don't really think about the land, like the land tanks and the speeders and stuff. So that's gonna be a big part of it. And not only that, the weapons, there really wasn't that much variety of weapons that first came out. It seems like you had to buy the DLC to get some decent weapons, and those weapons that we got from the DLCs were kind of somewhat overpowered. I mean, but that's my opinion. I don't know how other people thought about that, but
I mean, everybody has their own preference on skills and weapons. My only thing is that one thing I also want to answer that question right here was they're not going to be, because the DICE developers they're not going to have any more hero pickups for the next Battlefront game.
Okay,
they announced that.
Well, that's going to make it a little bit more I wouldn't say more fresher, but more I would say better, because that seems like you could have more heroes. It would be kind of a fairness kind of act, that hey, the enemy team got 2, so our team can have 2, but
right.
My thing is how is the vehicles going to work with the just the players, because this is probably the first time in a while since they've had vehicles, and the original
right.
Star Wars Battlefronts, we've had vehicles and they were opened up, and
right.
they were I can't remember how overpowered. I don't remember everything from that game, but some of them were kind of overpowered, and some of them were kind of weak, and so
right.
Battlefield's really known for DICE is really known for their Battlefield vehicle gameplays and stuff like that, and I play Battlefield myself, but how's it going to work in Battlefront? This is a big change to Battlefront. So
now, how excited were you when you saw the trailer, to the gameplay trailer, when they finally released it on E3? How excited were you when they showed that?
I was I was really excited. Some of the characters looked very menacing, especially Darth Maul. It's one of my favorites, by the way. I mean, he's very menacing. The rest of them, like the new one, Rey, and all them. Nice to see them, into the Star Wars, Battlefront, series, of the whole game. They just got added in. My thing, when I saw it, I just, balancing, it was just, how is the balancing going to be, and then the story mode, campaign, how are we going to get that, with the multiplayer, I was just, I was excited. I was just really worried about the balancing part, because it seems like they, their first Battlefront, they seem like they had a real big struggle of balancing the weapons. So,
And I think a lot of people have those type of concerns when it comes to balancing the weapons and which ones like which weapons they're going to be adding on and which heroes they want to be adding on. And I know there's been some speculation that since Darth Maul has already been confirmed, Yoda's confirmed, and you have Rey and Kylo and Luke Skywalker and Boba Fett and Darth Vader, you have pretty much those heroes are confirmed. But you also have some speculation that maybe General Grievous, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Anakin Skywalker. Those original characters that we played in the first two, well, especially the second, because the second actually had more, you can actually play as more Jedis and Sith in the second original Battlefront. And as much as I really we want more characters, but I don't really want too much characters in one whole game. You can't really fit them all, but at least, we got some that we actually were really excited to play for. Because, I'm really excited. You're really excited to play as Darth Maul for how many years?
I would say since Battlefront was made. As an iconic player, it's not really looked at. And I know some others aren't looked at, but, it's glad to see that, a guy who, well, I wouldn't say first started it all, but, like George Lucas's first supposed, episode, The Phantom Menace, the first apparently Sith, out of the movies, is going to be in the game. So
exactly. And as much as like I said, I'm really excited about this game, personally, and I felt like this game will be much more an improvement over the last. Especially over this one, because even though this one, as much as you want to play the original characters, but it gets boring after a while. We want to explore just a little more, have a little more fun, and also just to probably kick some ass. I was actually the really cool thing about especially this Battlefront, is that we finally get to play all the characters, and we actually do
get a huge variety.
Right, and actually do a cross-era multiplayer where you can actually play as, like what we saw in the gameplay trailer, where we get to play as Rey in a Clone Wars type environment. And I think those things are like really cool add-on to the next
franchise. Yeah, but it's all about the opinions. I'm just really hoping that they really step up the balancing. I'm doing a lot of comparisons with Battlefield, because DICE is the guys that make Battlefield, and this is gonna be a big step for them.
It will be a huge step, and it'll also be something that I think a lot of Star Wars fans should be excited about. Because even though they felt really disappointed with the last one, they actually felt like, this current Battlefront game that we have was just nothing like a test run or something that you can use it at the beta. But for this Battlefront coming up,
from their mistakes.
Yeah, and they learn from their mistakes, and I hope that they learn from their mistakes, because it seems to me that they actually, they're going in the right direction. When you want to bring in the fans of getting what they want. You don't want to have too much fan service, but at least it's something that, the game itself will be play longer, and not just, people getting bored with it after maybe one month or two.
And not only that, the downloadable content coming in, I heard, we've discussed about it being, some of the downloaded content was going to be free, like free maps, but my biggest concern is, they're going to have to make some money. There's no doubt about, all video game companies have to make some type of money, so I'm guessing some of the weapons might be, like, bought, but, you get like a bundle or, something like that, I don't know. But, just a little, little, like, what are they called, microtransactions, how is, the money making for them going to affect, the player? Is it going to be a play to win, or is it going to be,
Right.
That's another big concern.
Right. And another thing, also point out when you said microtransactions, it was also they announced that since they're not going to have a season pass, which is a really good idea. I think that's another big step for them to actually. Once again, they're heading to the right direction, because when you have a season pass, and I actually explained this in my other videos that I've done in the past, where if you have a season pass, it actually divides the fan base, because there's a lot of content that a lot of fans don't have, or they probably can't even afford a season pass, because there's a lot more content that someone has, and then there's a content that another person don't have. So it kind of divides the fan base a bit, because there's even though there's a lot of more content, but not if you're the type of person that can't afford a season pass or can't afford to buy a separate DLC, then you're kind of missing out on a lot of things.
And that really kind of shows that, you know, that they respect the fact that, you know, not everybody, you know, can't afford an enjoyment of the game, and the fact that they want to open up, you know, to the community, saying, hey, you know, the way I see it, they open up these no season pass, you know, things, and it shows me that, hey, you know, it's kind of like a test for them, you know, to make like, I don't mean like fast forward already, but like, say if it's Battlefront 2, it didn't go so well, they're like, hey, you know, we look back on this, you know, we didn't have season pass, you know, all the DLC content was free. You know,
I mean, and
what
if
can we do to improve, you know.
Right, and you know, and sometimes when you're pre-ordering a game that has more content, like for example the Elite Trooper Deluxe Edition that is pretty much coming out this year, it's gonna have a little bit more stuff to it, but you're probably the weapons that they're going to add on to it, you're gonna unlock it either way. You know, it's just for some people, they just want to have it right away, so that way they can use it more often.
That's, you know, yeah, that's another thing. Like I said, pay to win, you know. How is it going to affect gameplay? Because, you know, after we saw Battlefront, and, you know, you had to buy the DLCs, and they gave you some pretty ridiculous guns, like, you know, E4 and I think the DLT. No, not the DLT. It was.
You mean the DLT? No, the DLT 19 was already added on to the game.
Anyway, it was the one that shot the grenade. You know, the grenade one on it. It was like a grenade launcher. It shot really fast. I can't remember it. Anyways, we got those two weapons, and they were. I don't know if they were ridiculous for anybody else, but they were just absolutely insane. I felt really bad using them. You know, that was basically to me a pay to win, but you know, you know, if you don't feel cheesy about it, you got some kind of enjoyment out of it, you know. And that's another thing. We were just bringing up the DLT 19, free weapons, you know. Are they gonna bring that back? You know, I enjoy.
I think there are certain weapons they're gonna bring back. I just not too sure if. Whichever weapons that they probably want to bring back, because there's not really that much to because I know they're gonna bring a lot of Clone Wars weapons in. That's what we saw in the gameplay trailer at E3, and that's actually that's
another thing. Like, I don't mean to interrupt, but like, you know, how is the battles gonna work between Clone Wars stormtroopers and the Elite? You know, what's it called? The Resistance. How is it, you know, how is that, you know, between the stormtroopers, how are they going to work, you know, because the battles are way different between clone and, you know, the stormtroopers and, you know, the advanced stormtroopers from, you know, Force Awakens. How are they going to make those factions play out, you know? Are they going to be like, you know,
only 3 people in this
a whole one team in game, or it just... We really don't know, like, if the factions are going to be separated or not, and I hope they're kind of not.
Well, that's up to the developers, which they're going to add on to it. You know, it's not really up to us. It's not really up to you know. It's not really up to, you know, anybody else or Disney or anything. Well, actually, it is up to Disney because, you know, they own Lucasfilm. What I'm saying is that whatever the developers wanted to add on to the game, that's their idea of trying to, you know, hope to bring in more content for the next Battlefront.
Well, I agree with that. I 100% with that. But you know,
God.
it's just factions. You know, play a real big play. You know, into the game because
There's only like
know,
3 people in this. Sorry, I mean because there was only like 2 guys on our team. So, but keep going. What you're saying.
Oh, well, I mean, like the factions, you know, they could play a big role in, you know, into your team, you know, if you work as a team, you know, like, because there's gonna be a lot of confusions because they almost look alike, and with the graphics nowadays, you know, it's kind of, sometimes it can be hard to spot out, you know, enemy players, you know, how would they work out, you know, the factions and how they would, you know, work against, you know, other factions, but. And that's gonna like really improve the game because the fact they have more variety of characters into the game instead of it being just a basic stormtrooper and a basic, you know, a rebel. So
yeah, and possibility, you know, hopefully more customizations as well. I probably maybe
like
see we can actually have those.
You know,
yeah.
Or attachments, or you know, I don't, you know, this I know it ain't Call of Duty, but I mean, I mean. Attachments could probably, you know, give some variety to a player. You know, hey, you know, this looks pretty cool. You know, let me use this. You know, it would probably, you know, make more of a, you know, open up thing to the community.
Right.
But, I mean, yeah.
And for anybody who's pretty much new to the Battlefront series, I mean, from the beginning of the stream, we did, you know, discuss our disappointments that from the last game. So hopefully, maybe, you know, I'm the kind of person that if, you know, all the things sound great, but I have to believe it when I see it, because I don't want to, you know, be manipulated by a developer that's going to say, you know, all these good ideas, and next thing you know, they kind of stab you in the back with a giant lightsaber and just, you know, and just like try to steal your money.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen DICE do that, but we have seen EA do that. You know, EA. You know,
and remember, it's not DICE Battle. Well, it's developed by DICE, but it's not DICE Battlefront.
You know,
it's
DICE
EA.
Can't really do nothing about it. But EA, you know, I haven't. You know, I don't really see that with the new Battlefields. You know, it's basically pay. You get your assignments on Battlefield. I don't know how that's going to work on Battlefront.
And it does, like, this Battlefront game feels like it's actually a Battlefield with Battlefront content in it.
It does. It really does, and that's why I'm doing a lot of comparison to Battlefield, because, you know, every time I play it, I feel like I'm playing just a futuristic Battlefield. And don't get me wrong, I mean, a futuristic Battlefield sounds really horrible, but you know, we're talking Star Wars here. I mean, a lot of people like Star Wars, so I mean, it sounds
a lot of people love Star Wars, you know.
Yeah, and you know, once you start playing it, it's just like, how is this? Why does this feel like a Battlefield? Why does this feel like a Battlefield that was just, you know, not even?
And that's what a lot of people were worried.
You know,
and that's what a lot of people were worried about with the first. I mean, with this Battlefront. How? Yeah, I was about to say, I get confused I feel like I'm about to say Battlefield, but it's just like, you know,
I know.
they sound so similar. It's their fault. Anyway.
You know, it has the word battle in it, so.
Exactly. So, what happened is a lot of people were feeling a bit worried that this might be, you know, a Battlefield game with Star Wars content in it. And they didn't want that. They just want to have a Star Wars Battlefront game that could be good and stand on its own. Which luckily we didn't get that, because even though as much as, you know, you love it, you hate it, you know, you can find some enjoyment out of it. And
indeed, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really play the game that much. I've gotten mad with it, you know, I've rage quit it, and you know, it's not that I hate the game, you know, it's just that my playstyle sucks. But here's the thing, there's multiple ways to play the game, you know, there's different playstyles, you know, there's rush,
right.
You know, you just sit back, you know, which we call campers, but, you know, and, you know, there's a lot of variety in it, and not that many players see that, you know, it's all about, you know, it's all about kills, you know, and an objective game mode, like Conquest on Battlefield, into Star Wars Battlefront, with Battlefront 2 would be amazing, you know.
And you know the reason why the last one was very successful was because they add a lot of content that you don't have to pay for. It's already in the game. And that's what happened, and that's why a lot of people hated the 2015 version is because there's not that much content in this game, because you're overpaying $50 just so you can add 4 more maps.
Yeah, and then not only that, the weapons. I was really very disappointed in the weapons. When I first got the game, it was like, where are my weapons? There's like at least probably a good 9 or 10. I haven't really unlocked them all, but I was like, okay, I guess I'll grind for these.
Well, besides from the weapons part, but it's also there's not, my biggest issue with this Battlefront is no story mode, and I'm glad they're actually doing something right. I agree. And I'm actually pretty excited what they're gonna bring in with the story team. How, for what I forgot the soldier's name already. Since the story mode is gonna be taking place between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. Now that's something I'm actually really looking forward to.
That's just like another Rogue One, basically, right there. I mean, that sounds. To me, it sounds. I feel like it could make another movie for Star Wars if they made enough money for this. I don't know if it happened or not, but the campaign for
it could make money.
It would be a good thing of campaign, and not only that, after the campaign's done, are they even going to add anything to their campaign?
Well, my favorite campaign, pretty much from all the Star Wars shooters, I would say, Republic Commando. It's still one of my favorite Star Wars first-person shooters because it's so awesome. But Battlefront 2 story. Yeah, go ahead.
On Battlefield 1, they got a campaign. It was somewhat
of a campaign,
really
but
short. Yeah, it was short stories. I just hope I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it was a bad idea, but I don't think it was. It didn't really bring up. Like it
didn't really bring that much excitement as or the longevity of the game.
Battlefield, you hear multiplayer. You hear. Just going in the game. When you think of Battlefield, you don't really think of a campaign, which, I just hope they don't do what they did with, what they did on Battlefield 1 with their campaign. If they did, then we can't do nothing about it. We can spread a little hate about it, but in the end, we'll get some enjoyment out of it. Like, G-Bomb has said, there's ways to find enjoyment out of the game. So I just really hope they don't do that, so.
Yeah, and you bring up a lot of good points because, as much as as a Star Wars fan, it's like a world that you have to explore. I mean, I'm not gonna say that possibility they're gonna bring every single planet in Star Wars Battlefront 2, but I'm saying is that hopefully
that would be a lot of gigabytes.
Yeah, and they don't have to try doing that. They don't have to shove everything all at once in one game. But I'm saying something that I can play longer, I can actually enjoy the game a lot more, and hopefully a lot of people can enjoy the game as well. And I'm glad they did not go for the season pass BS, because like I said, it will divide the fan base, and with the microtransactions, which I don't really mind having that, it could bring the community much more together. So that's something that it could actually improve upon.
Indeed, but with the microtransactions, there's still a pay to win there. Some people think it's still a pay to win. I kind of don't think it's pay to win. I think it's a fresh.
You look at it this way.
Set of gear for you.
You look at it this way, they're following the Titanfall 2 route, because Titanfall 2 never had a season pass. So it was actually a pretty decent game that a lot of people overlooked because everybody was excited for Battlefield 1, including myself.
Yeah.
So
as a Battlefield fan, fanboy, I really, respect the fact that Titanfall as well, they really got looked down. And I feel like what they did was pretty good, and I hope they could do something like that. I'm hoping that a lot of the game developers look at other games and they just want to be the best. I'm hoping with this game, they say, hey, that looks really good. We should really do this game. It might actually put some variety together. But it's just the fallout of how everything's gonna work is we just gotta wait for it. We don't really 100% know how all of this is gonna work. We're just talking about it. So.
Right, and we just gotta have to wait and see possibility in the near future or when we finally get our hands on the game, or if you ever pre-ordered it.
For the the beta.
Yeah, and you know, even though I'm kind of late because I haven't pre-ordered mine yet, because like I said, I'm one of the people. We're one of the few people in the minority that's kind of like, I'll wait until, even if I'm not ready to pre-order the game yet, I want to wait until to see if there's actually people that actually give good reviews. So far, a lot of people are really enjoying it, even though it's only just a beta. But I want to see a lot more. So what we're gonna do.
Indeed.
And of course, there are gonna be people that are gonna be like, top 10 things you need to know about Star Wars Battlefront 2 right now, or the top 10 things that you need to know about the story. It's gonna happen. I mean, people are gonna make those videos, but it's just, you know, I have to wait and see and go look at my perspective of how the game's gonna be. You know,
you kind of can't rely on those guys either. I mean, some of them do some good reviews, but they're there to get their cash. You know, they're not actually trying to put out, you know, Fallout
like
love
a clickbait
for the whole game. They're basically a clickbait. I mean, they really just want our cash. You know, like us, our Star Wars fans. You know, we want what our money's worth. You know, see if it's, you know, we want our, you know, exciting, you know, our Star Wars. You know,
right?
We want the Star Wars. You know, we don't want some, you know, cash making money, make somebody rich. You know, we want to see.
I mean, Disney's already $1 billion company. What do you expect? I mean,
we don't exactly. I mean,
they just want more money. I mean,
and that's a huge problem. I mean, you know, you think about Disney. You know, do they care for this franchise? Do we know that? You know, I'm not really big into hearing about the Disney, you know, I'm kind of really late for the Disney hearing about, you know, between, you know, Star Wars and all that, you know, I just watch Star Wars, but I do enjoy it. My biggest thing is Disney going to run us a money out, you know, with EA, or, you know, they're going to bring some love for the fans, so.
Well, that's only, and you bring a good point there, that's only a matter of time, how long, you know, if Disney if EA and Disney are going to win the respect back. I mean, I am excited for what's new in Star Wars. I mean, because there's a lot of things that's going on right now, especially not just the films, but also I wanted to see if they can actually make more Star Wars games as well.
Yeah.
And hopefully, because there was a lot, because ever since the Disney acquisition, there was a lot of those Star Wars games that were never even made it to liftoff. They never even got a chance to even see the light of day.
Throw it away.
Right. I mean, you look at First Assault, you look at Star Wars 1313, where a lot of people consider, oh yeah, that's going to be the best Star Wars game ever made. None of that never happened ever since Disney bought it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, some of those games could have been, you know, a great game, but I'm kind of glad they actually put those down and they went with this, because when I play Battlefront, I think of the old ones, you know, with the open world, you know, with the, you know, the space battles and the, you know, ground battles and the heroes. We really need that back, you know. I really enjoyed it, you know. I'm not saying it was the best, you know. Yeah, other people have opinions, but it was really enjoyable, and it felt like you were just playing the film. I mean,
it's not playing the film. It felt like you're actually in the film. You know, you actually feel like you're there.
That's what I was going for, you know. But yeah, I agree. You know, they really should have. You know, they really are going. We don't know what they are going to do. So,
right.
I'm all over the place right now.
And that's not a bad idea. Or I mean, it's not. I can't even talk. You bring up a lot of good points, and also what are your speculations for pretty much what they're gonna have in the next one?
Well, vehicles, of course, what I first talked about. You know, I'm really excited for the vehicles. You know, I'm hoping nobody's gonna be fighting the pickups. You know, that was another thing, annoying ass pickups. You know, it seemed like everybody was going for the pickups. Nobody could get the enjoyment out of the game. One of my biggest speculation, just like yours, campaign. Voice cry. Campaign's probably gonna be a big, humongous part of the Battlefront franchise. Knowing the fact, you know, needs one. You know, you get bored of multiplayer, hop on a campaign. You know, earn some trophies, enjoy the game. But you know, there's a lot out there, but it's just little stuff. You know, it's just how the maps are gonna play. You know, how are they gonna go about, you know, buying and this, you know, making their money, and we're getting our enjoyment. So that's just my three big majorities of all of it.
So, so far, for pretty much the planets that are gonna be in, we know we're gonna get Endor, we're gonna get Hoth, we're pretty much gonna get Tatooine because we saw in the trailer. Probably Mos Eisley is gonna be back. I actually had a lot of fun with that map. Brings back a lot of memories, but hopefully Yavin 4. We saw Naboo. Naboo is actually confirmed. It's going to be a playable map. Death Star and Jakku will be probably making a return. What are other planets you think that you're speculating that you want to bring in, or you want EA to bring in?
To be honest, one of the free ones that they gave out, Greater of the Giants, was a pretty, I don't know, I can't remember. That was
Jakku, yeah.
Jakku, okay, well then, yeah, that's one of my biggest pop things, you know. I really enjoy the map. The map got thrown away after 2 months of its release, and all the DLC throughout, most of the maps. You know, and and also another thing, jetpacks. And that's another thing, the jetpacks and the, you know, the overpowered perks you get, like explosive you know, the explosive shot and, you know, ion cannons and stuff like that. How are they going to play? But
like the ion torpedo.
Yes, those. No, don't even get me started on the goddamn fucking. What was it called? The thing that you aim. What was it called? They aimed at you, and it was like a homing shot.
Oh yeah, those things are a pain in the ass.
That was annoying. I hope they never bring that back. I'm just hoping we don't get stuff like that again. You know, that was I remember just shutting down my PlayStation after that one day. I was playing with a friend, and I'm just like, no, I just can't deal with this. But yeah, I'm really, you know, my Curious George over here. You know, there's a lot of curiosity going on with this game. You know, I'm hoping it turns out what it's supposed to be. So.
Well, I hope they, you know, EA still keeps their promise into, you know, into how they're gonna sell this game out, to, you know, to the fans, and, you know, for everybody who has enjoyed Star Wars for most of their life. You know, that's something that, you know, they have to keep in mind, that you say, hey, you know, you gotta make some good decisions.
And another big play is Battlefront, most of its sale was from parents buying their kid Star Wars game. You know, a lot of kids like Star Wars, and that's another thing we're gonna play. We're not gonna get, you know, any type of huge. I'm hoping we can get some violence in there. You know, the violence really make the game feel like you're really you're in that movie. Not only that, you got virtual reality coming out as well, so that's gonna be a huge play for Battlefront. Not too long ago, they just got another virtuality reality thing for it. I thought it was pretty cool. I've checked it out. That's another thing, you know. How are we going to go? How is this game going to go along with new equipment coming out for the game? I know the Pro, which just came out not too long ago, with, you know, right around Battlefield's release, and the Pro made the game kind of better. So, you know, that's another thing we have to look at.
So another confirmed map is Star Killer Base, and there's also another Imperial planet that I pretty much I can't pronounce it correctly, but it's technically.
Are you talking about the Resistance, where they had their ion cannon that run off the sun?
That was rumored that we're going to bring into, because since they're bringing in the Last Jedi content, and since this game's probably going to be coming out right before the Last Jedi even release, they're probably going to add that too, maybe, but it's just speculation.
That would be a pretty cool thing to add from The Force Awakens, because when I first saw that, I'd be like, that would be an awesome map in Battlefront, because it's like a Death Star, but like 10 times better. It's not really in space anymore, it's on land. So
Right. And also one of my favorite maps from the original Battlefront 2, Camino. That's something that I'm actually really excited about.
I don't get how you're remembering all these names, but you're bringing up some that bring back flashbacks. But yeah, that one was another good one. You know, you really don't hear about these old maps, but you know, I don't really think they're focusing on their past. I think they're just, you know, their only past they're focused on is in Battlefront. You know, the original, what they just released in what 2015, 2016.
2017.
Right? 20, you know, either way, you know, the recent Battlefront, you know, I think they're just mostly focusing on that, and, you know, if they bring in more variety from the old ones, that would be awesome. I mean...
Now, what is your favorite, what was your favorite memory when you were playing Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original game?
The original?
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember too much. I mean, I was a little kid these days. I remember when I had a PlayStation Portable, I used to play it on there, and, you know, only that on the PS2, I used to play the old ones. It was like basically your Call of Duty, you know, I know Call of Duty was big back then, but it was basically Call of Duty for Star Wars. It was pretty good. You know.
No, that would be Republic Commando. That would be a Call of Duty for Star Wars.
Yeah, that too. I mean, you know, I've heard of them. I've been hearing some games that I never heard of. You know, like, you know, the 1313. I was like, what the hell? I never heard about that. You know?
Yeah, and that game was supposed to be released back for 2015, but unfortunately, since, like I said, going back to the Disney acquisition, they decided to cancel the game because since they didn't have no value to it, so they just canceled everything. And there was another Star Wars shooter that was supposed to be released soon, and unfortunately that got canceled too. And that's when they got that inspiration to make a Battlefront game. So what's the whole point of making a Call of Duty like, you know, Star Wars game?
I'm not really trying to compare to Call of Duty, but when you hopped on the old Battlefront, you know how Call of Duty was popular, you know, kind of then and now.
Yeah.
That's the way it was for Battlefront back then. It was basically the second Call of Duty. You know, you would get on there and have some fun. You know, you have your little friend come over and play some Battlefront. You know, it was pretty fun to play. But I mean, we could really see some more. You know.
I mean, we can all agree for the fact that it'll be fun if they actually bring back. You remember the mode Hunt, where you actually play as a Wampa?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That was actually a lot of fun. I remember, you know, every Friday night, sometimes when I have friends come over, and they want to play Hunt. Hunt was my favorite game mode because of, you know, you actually play as a Wampa and start just tearing people to shreds, and it was actually a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that's another thing, you know, like the two-player skirmishes, you know, not that many games have that anymore. I know this is very little stuff, you know, it doesn't really have a huge improvement of it, but you know, it would make a more of a sell because there's not that many two-player games that you can play on, you know, one game, you know, it's all online, you know. It's always all focused
online because
online,
there's not too much content because, you know, everybody, since, you know, once they buy the game, they're gonna go straight to multiplayer and just start trying to rack up some kills and prestige and, you know, ranks and things like that. And that's not really trying to have fun. That's actually, you know, you're trying to be better than everybody else.
And speaking of multiplayer, this is a huge improvement for the single player, you know, campaign. Co-op for campaign would be amazing for this. I mean, and you know, it would really improve if they brought a campaign. You know, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's been confirmed. I don't know if it's confirmed 100%. They're bringing a campaign. If they did do that, it would improve their, you know, reviews on their campaign a lot. I mean, they would probably make more money just, you know.
And they're actually you know, improved by the support from the Star Wars community as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know. I've played mostly all, you know, DICE games, you know, all their Battlefields. They really care for their fans, and I think Star Wars is another game that, you know, they really care for their fans about. You know, this group right now for Star Wars is really small compared, you know, like Battlefield. I mean, really small.
Correct.
You know, there's not that many. You compare the fan base from Star Wars to Battlefield. You know, Battlefield already won that one. yeah, they're really, you know, trying to, DICE is really trying to get the fan base to, you know, they're really trying to work with the community and the fans. So, but yeah.
And just so another thing they wanted to bring back space battles, which is another thing that's really timeless. Just space battles only, and I think since it's already probably confirmed a possibility, it's just speculation, but they actually maybe bring the Rogue One section where the final battle in Rogue One, remember that? And possibility that's maybe be a playable space battle. But I would love maybe it's not going to happen, but I would love to have the original space battles where you're actually going to the enemy ship and just blow shit up.
Oh hell yes! You know that one's give me a huge flashback right there. I remember just going in the fucking the enemy ships and just just going in and going ham. Really need that. I mean, that was really an enjoying thing.
Right. And as much as as much possibility, if I won't be disappointed if they don't do it, but it'll be. You're gonna have more people loving the game even more if you actually do that. I mean, trust me.
Oh, indeed. I mean, it shows that they want more variety in this game, But,
right. But it didn't stop EA from making a lot of money because
they got
this game
really good hate.
Because the thing is that they sold over 14 million copies from this game alone from 2015. So imagine, with all the stuff that they fixed, they probably might sell more. And I hope, like I said, and there are going to be some people that are going to be really skeptical about it because there's not too much support over this because it's an unreleased game. So why would you want to judge an unreleased game that you have no information, on, and also you haven't even got a chance to play it yourself.
Yeah, indeed. People are really jumpy on the game before it's released because they expect it to be bad because after their first release of Battlefront, I mean, it's kind of really ironic, hypocritical for me to say this. Another game just came out, Call of World War II, Sledgehammer. I was really looking forward to, and I looked at it and I'm like, it's actually pretty good. That's another thing for Battlefront. Like how is us fans gonna react for its release? I'm hoping it really runs really smooth.
Hopefully it will be really smooth from start to finish.
Indeed, I mean, I agree with that, but not everything's perfect, so.
Exactly. So, now, possibility, this is just something that you might think about, but what would be even good if we actually get, servers for the next Star Wars Battlefront 2?
Oh, you mean like Battlefield servers?
Yes.
Like how they work out?
You think that will work out?
To be honest, I actually think it would. It would work out for EA, and it would work out for us. Especially if they bring in the game modes, that allow you to, go from land to space.
Of course.
Indeed. I mean, you can have, little wars, and not only that, EA would be making some good money, their little microtransactions, because you can rent these servers and own them. You can do whatever the hell you want with them. Battlefield's really known for that. They're really, really good on that. And
but would you really think that it might be possible?
What I think might be possible? Hell yes. I mean, I really think it would really work out pretty good. I mean, it would work out for EA and it would work out for us. So, I mean, because there's some times where I just want to hop on the game with some friends and not have to do any bullshit. Or 1v, like a versus. And not only that, clans. Battlefield just got some clans, our platoons and stuff. I would love to see that in the game. Winning an objective takes a lot of teamwork. Not one person's gonna go and be on that flag to help you with that objective. So that would be another thing. teamwork and showing off what that you're all about, about your team, and that you have friends and stuff. That it's all about having a good time, So.
Of course, and possibility. Like I said, it's just speculation. So it's really we only have to wait and see what we're gonna get.
Confirmed. Yeah.
Right. So we only have to wait and see what we can get. Maybe, maybe not.
And the beta is gonna tell us the most. It's not gonna tell us 100%, but it will tell us the most majority of what we will be seeing. So.
All right. So, since pretty much we covered a lot of things for this game. And chances are, pretty much, for those that possibly are watching the stream or they're going to watch this on YouTube later on, there's a chance that you're probably going to pre-order it anyway, regardless of someone else's opinion. You can pretty much, people could say that, well, this game is not going to be good, or it's just...
They don't know that.
They don't know that.
It's, yeah.
And I think, there are already people who are criticizing the game, the lack of graphics, the lack of
graphics didn't matter then.
I mean, I'm sorry, not the lack of graphics. Lack of story, lack of gameplay, things like that. And already it's like you're judging a book by its cover. The game hasn't been released yet.
Oh yeah,
just yet.
And, you gotta ignore those people. They're mad because they didn't get what they wanted in the last one, and you can't be mad about that forever. They eventually will make it happen. They're really gonna. Oh shit, our fans are wanting something this. Let's put that in the game. They're trying to do that. Don't see. I mean, the only person I'm really worried about is EA. DICE is really, really good with their fans. They're really good with the community.
And sometimes when a developer pushes a consumer into pre-ordering a game that no one got a chance to get there, you're pushing a product that hasn't even been tested yet. Sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they did it for E3 because, at least you got these popular YouTubers like Stone Mountain
giving it out.
They want to give out. They want to give out their feedback. And from ever since E3 when they revealed the actual gameplay, and I've seen a bunch of YouTube videos left and right.
I try to stay away from it because I want to be a surprise.
Right. And there's YouTube videos that are, but you got to admit you can't hide from it because the fact that there's.
Oh yeah! As soon as I see that thumbnail, I'm like, oh, I want to watch this. I want to watch it. I watch a couple of them. I don't try to spoil myself too much with it, but I really want it to be a surprise because I just have this gut feeling it's gonna be really good. I don't down it.
And people are still battling over, both left and right that they want to pre-order the game or not. I mean, you don't. You can pre-order a game if you want to. It's not. If you're really excited, go for it. If you wanna wait for it later, that's fine. There are people that will wait. They will wait later. They'll look at the reviews. Yeah. They'll see how the community is, and if they're ready to buy the game, then they're ready. But other than that, you can't really criticize a product that hasn't even been on the shelves yet.
Yeah, I mean, like the other day, I was in GameStop selling some games. I was about to buy it, and I said, "Let me wait. Let me do some research real quick. Not because I thought something bad. It was just, am I getting what my money's worth?"
And that's the key sentence. Am I getting what my money's worth?
It's worth.
That's something. Exactly. That's something that people have to think about. And I have full trust on DICE because they have been communicating actively on Twitter. They have communicated with the video game community, with the fans, and that's something. It's rare.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't mean to interrupt, but DICE can be known for ignoring some issues for a pretty certain amount of time.
I mean, anybody can.
Yeah, for example.
But it's good to listen to the community as well because John Boyega has been active. They've been on EA's ass all the time for, if we're going to get a story mode or we're not. We're going to get more single player content or we're not. There's a lot of questions that are left unanswered, and it's really EA had to answer those questions to the community, or we're just going to wait and see if they did listen to it or not.
Indeed, I mean, but you know, like an example, I mean, I don't mean to, like, you know, throw you off or anything, but you know, as I was saying a while ago, example, you know, what DICE can be, what can be done from them, what we expect from them. Like recently ago, Battlefront just got a huge patch, still not the greatest, grenade spams. And that's another thing in Battlefront I want to talk about, grenade spams.
Grenade
last
spams.
one, you know, with your, what is it called? Not perks, like your rocket launchers and stuff, you know. I'm kind of glad, you know, thermal imploders, you know, it seemed like everybody had one in their hand. I mean, it seemed like everywhere I went, there was a thermal imploder right around my corner. How are the grenades going to be worked on? And, you know, that's part of the balancing process. But yeah.
And another thing, you know, like you point out, for the star cards, you know,
Yeah.
you know, which ones were they going to be adding? They're probably going to add more, especially, and they maybe add different ones, you know, for each era as well.
That another thing, yeah, star cards, you know, that plays a huge role in the game. It's basically your perks in game, you know.
Well, you made a good point when you said, you know, those had to be the key for the next game. If they're gonna be good, if they're gonna be bad, if they're gonna shit, you know, that's something. That's something in the end that it will work out or not, because I mean, somebody DICE is gonna take a risk out of it, you know.
They're gonna have to risk, you know. No, I'm not saying this game's gonna needs to be, everything's gonna be nerfed, everybody's gonna be shooting nerf bullets at each other. There's gonna be some overpowered stuff. My thing is, are they going to take the time to nerf the hell out of them? You know, make it where you can use them and get kills with them, and not be so. How can I say it? You know, I'm so good with this, but you know, I can basically one-shot the fuck out of you across the map. You know, type of deal. So.
And I think that's a lot of deals out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, but I've seen DICE's work. They seem like a group that would work their ass off to make sure this game. I'm pretty sure if they, you know, if they didn't sell this, you know, if EA didn't have anything to do with the game, I'm pretty sure this game would probably be out. To be honest, I mean, it would be fantastic, but you know, somebody's got to make money. Somebody had to be rich, so, you know.
And really, it's not about making money. It's also about the reputation of the game, you know. Because if this game falls, you know, then they're gonna have to rethink something.
No, indeed, and then that's where franchises usually fail, because you know, once that franchise fails, don't ever see it again. You will never see it again. They're just like, this was a mistake. Let's get rid of it. We didn't make cash off this. We lost our reputation. Done. Bye. You know. But I don't think they're gonna be gold diggers for us. So. But yeah.
So what are the things you is there anything else you want to say for next Star Battlefront?
The campaign again, you know, little game modes, you know. We didn't really see a variety of game modes. Like we had, you know, I'm not talking like, you know, like in-game modes, some fun game modes, you know.
Will there be an instant action?
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, is it just gonna be like straight up in the fucking game, or you know, like little mini games would be pretty cool in the game. I would see that, you know. If you're bored of the campaign, you're bored of multiplayer, go play a mini game, you know.
I don't know if they're gonna do that, but I mean,
I don't think they will. I mean,
it's something. I mean, you're probably gonna have all the characters. You're probably gonna have, you know, at least something. So, which character do you might think, besides, you know, in the prequel era, you'll be excited they want to bring back?
You mean from the whole entire like Star Wars series, or from the last game?
From the prequels.
Prequels. I really don't know. That's a hard decision. There's so many good ones out there.
I would say since we got since we got Darth Maul, let's bring in General Grievous.
And that's and another thing, General Grievous, dude's got 4 fucking lightsabers. How is that going to work for the game? I mean, how are they going to work the controls on that? The dude's got 4 lightsabers, so.
Right.
Yeah. But that's all I really got to say. I mean, I'm really just waiting for a good game.
All right. And also, I think since they found a leak gameplay, I think you might have your own droid that's probably with you, maybe for the story mode. But since there's not really too much to reveal, and I don't want to go into spoilers, I don't want to spoil myself because I really care about your experience and my experience when it comes to these games, because as much as a Star Wars fan, I like to keep myself as a surprise. So
yeah, same here.
And I try to stay away from all speculation, and all of
clickbait is a huge thing. People clickbait to just go around and ramble about how horrible the game is so they can earn a little cash and be happy with themselves. And ruin a franchise. I don't think it's gonna be a bad franchise. We can already see they want to bring another one out. They want to learn from mistakes.
And I want to they want to make sure that there are certain franchises they approve upon the last.
Yeah, they're risking a lot right now just from their last Battlefront. Their last Battlefront. I mean, say
what you want, love it or hate it. I mean, there are some little bit enjoyment out of the last Battlefront.
Indeed. I mean, I as a person who's not really good at Battlefront, I get really mad, the bullshit, overpowered weapons. I still find a good, way to play the game with friends. So.
Right. Alright. Since pretty much I'm not going to close the stream just yet, I'm just going to make my final conclusion here. And just wanted to say, just point out, everyone, if you are pre-ordering the game or not, I mean, we're all big boys and girls. I mean, everyone can make their own decisions, and you don't have to rely on someone else's opinion. It's great that you're very excited for some of them, and some they are pretty skeptical. But in the end, we're all gonna have to sit down and try to hopefully the game is worth the money or not, because you have a chance.
Getting your money's worth. That's where it comes to play. So.
Because we all have seen, developers who had the audacity to manipulate the public into buying a product that you don't really need, and trust me, I have been the victim of that. And I'm not gonna say for the first rebooted Battlefront, I was really excited, everyone was, but even though this Battlefront was disappointment, I'm not gonna be a hypocrite and say I'm not gonna buy it because the game the game be any good? We don't know for sure. But in the end, by the end of the day, everybody's gonna play it. Everybody's gonna have their own opinion about it, and hopefully it works out. So
I mean, another thing is, if we could respect each other's opinions about this game, it would probably work out pretty good. Like, hey, if they listen to the disappointment part, and then they listen to the people who are ready to ready to see, they're giving out some good advice. This is when DICE is gonna make their play. When the game comes out, this is where they're gonna sit back and they're gonna listen.
Right, and it's now or
like this.
It's now or never. So this is is going to crush its competition, or it's going to fail miserably.
Yeah.
So anyway, guys, I just want to say thank you for watching ID. I just want to say thank you for joining me in this conversation. Hopefully in the near future we're gonna bring more discussions like this, and possibility if there are more Star Wars Battlefront 2 information, probably we might discuss it, but we're not gonna go too in depth with it. So for those of you who have watched the stream or who are going to see it on YouTube, let me know in the comments down below on what you think, on what do you expect for the next Battlefront 2. Are you excited? Are you gonna get it? Are you not gonna get it? You're just gonna wait for it until everyone, you know, is satisfied? Let me know what you think. As always, ID, if there's anything you want to say.
Just may the force be with you.
Yes, yes, may the force be with you. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.